viewers, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for tuning back into this weather presentation for March 12th, 2020. As always, please don't forget to subscribe as well as ringing the bell notifications. And please watch the whole video as well, as you will find this video very exciting today. And I also do have another big announcement. And that big announcement is bleep. Yes, I'm going to tell you in my next video, which I'm going to leave a link to that down in the description. So it will be out right after this video, pretty much coming out at the same time. So the big announcement video, I'll have it in the description. It'll be titled, like in the description, it'll be titled big announcement video. So please consider watching that as well. Thank you guys. And today we're going to be talking about my first 2020 Atlantic hurricane season forecast. I know I did promise you guys. So I can't wait to share with you guys today. And so sadly, my face seems to be blocking the part of the presentation. So for this part, my face will be off of the screen. So for today's video, we're going to be looking at signs of a potentially active 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, plus my first forecast. You know what? As a matter of fact, let me put my forecast up right now to make sure you guys see it. Okay, so this is my forecast. Remember, this is my very first forecast. Changes are very likely. Actually, no, there will be changes to this. Obviously, no major weather companies really have put out their outlook yet, so once they do, those will be over here. But all I have is my forecast over here, and over here is what we typically get in an average season. That's what AVG means. That means average. So on average, we get 12 storms that earn a name. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. So usually in a normal season, we get our L named storm at some point. Okay, we get 12 named storms, and out of those 12 named storms, we do usually get 6 hurricanes. So basically, just cut it in half. So basically, cut it in half and 6 hurricanes. And out of those 6 hurricanes, we usually get 3 major hurricanes, which are Category 3 winds of 111 miles an hour or greater. So my forecast is for 13 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Okay, so what we would call a slightly above average season. Then again, there will be changes. So do expect changes, but that is my forecast. So let's continue with the presentation. So these will be the Nino 3, this is like the Nino 3-4 mapped here, courtesy of the Australian Bureau of Meteorology. And basically, we're going to go through March, April, May, June, July, all that. Okay? And all the way through June or July. And we're going to look at all these models here, so these 7 models, and kind of look at what are they talking about in terms of the Nino 3-4 temperature anomaly, sea surface temperature anomaly. So obviously El Nino is here. That is a less active hurricane season. La Nina is here. That's a more active hurricane season. Neutral is also, kind of active as well, but La Nina really is your, active hurricane season over here. So as we look at March of 2020, so right now, and what the models are saying, a lot of the models are what we call a positive neutral. Okay, so neutral, basically, I'm going to put it in the simplest terms I can. This over here is El Nino. This over here is La Nina. So in between that La Nina and the perfect zero line, okay, so this region right here, this region I'm coloring in, that's what we call, I look like a face, that's what we call the negative neutral phase, meaning that it's close to a La Nina, but it's not really a La Nina yet. Okay, and that can favor in a active hurricane season. Okay, and a positive neutral is right on the line of an El Nino to the zero line right here. So this area is what we call a positive neutral. Okay, so usually positive neutrals, usually they mean a slightly less active hurricane season. Although anywhere in the neutral, usually the hurricane season can go any both ways. So look at the models for right now. A lot of the models, okay, the BOM, the Euro, the JMA, NASA, NOAA, and the UKMO, all are in a positive neutral phase, meaning they're still at neutral, but they're above the zero line at the same time. And the mean on the bottom here is basically the mean taking the average of all these models and basically put them down there. So the mean out of these models is 0.4 degrees Celsius above average, meaning a neutral phase. Notice though, from March to April, notice how the models start to recede a little bit, if that makes sense. They start going this way. They start backing out towards the La Nina. Okay, even the European model, which tends to go a little El Nino, even is starting to back up. So the CANSIPs and NASA are starting to go backwards a little bit, going towards La Nina, going towards that potentially more active hurricane season. And yes, one of these models, or potentially more, will hit the La Nina line first. If you're watching this, pause it real quick and see which of these 7 models do you think is going to hit the blue line first, the La Nina first. None of them hit El Nino, but which do you think will hit this blue line first over here? So just pause that, think that to yourself, and then ask yourself if you were right. So a lot of the models are still above that 0 line, but we're still in neutral phase for April, which can result in a potentially active hurricane season. Okay, neutral could sometimes mean an active hurricane season. I believe for in 2005, or I want to say 2004, one of those years when we had like a record of 2005 when we had a record amount of tropical activity, I do believe that was actually a neutral season, or at least part of the time it was neutral. It could have been a little bit of La Nina as well, but neutral can also bring a big hurricane season, not just La Nina. So that's why you gotta watch. Find my mouse here. There we go. All right, so there's April. So as we head towards May, look at this. NASA really rocketing towards, that La Nina phase. A lot of the models now are starting to hover around 0 a little bit, with the exception of the European model. When you average out all the models, it pretty much comes at exactly 0 when you average all these models out. Okay, so basically, if you know what all these models, the numbers were, you add all these up, the number is divided by 7, but you can't really do that because these are anomalies. But again, once you take the average of them, it's pretty much right on the 0 line at this point, based on the current forecast for May. For June, okay, now NOAA's starting to catch up a little bit. NASA and NOAA are really getting close to that La Nina point. Okay, but again, a lot of the models are hovering around 0, and the average of all the models is now below 0. So averaging out all these 7 models is now below 0. And your winner is NOAA with a surprise. Yes, they hit the La Nina line first, most likely following by NASA. Okay, and again, the average of these models is really below that 0 line, so potential for La Nina, I think, is really possible. Here are the monthly sea surface temperature anomalies for the Nino 3-4 region. Okay, some more modeling, some spaghetti models is what we call it. All these little gray lines are people saying what could potentially happen. The green line basically just cuts it right down the middle, where most of the models are. Okay, doesn't it always cut down the middle? Yes, it does, but it also, like, where the darkest colors are is where those models are really close together. They're in agreement. Okay, so based on the average of all these little spaghetti models here, we expect a trend that goes downward as we head towards the peak of hurricane season. Potentially June, July, August, we could be below the 0 line. Okay, either way, we're probably going to be in a neutral phase. Okay, so, and who knows, some models are projecting a little uprise and then a downfall. Some models, that's what a lot of the models are actually saying. So basically saying a little rise towards El Nino, which if we did have an El Nino, which is unlikely, that would mean a, less significant hurricane season. So some models are projecting a little uprise and then we fall as we head towards the end of hurricane season. Okay, so here's your month-to-date value. This was probably updated. This was probably updated February 15th. Okay, so this is the month-to-date value from February, and you can see it was pretty, far down. Okay, we did have a little drop as we headed into February. Okay, so these are all forecasts. Okay, that's kind of like your observation time right here. All this forward is all forecasting. So, that being said, let's look at some more Nino 3-4 probabilities, seeing what is most likely to happen. And you can see La Nina probabilities aren't that high. Then again, this could have changed, even though this was recently updated. But look at the probabilities for an ENSO neutral. Pretty much staying, all of them are above 50%. And notice how, as we head towards the end of the hurricane season, notice how the chances for El Nino continue to fall. Well, they peak a little bit for April, but look at this, 8%, 4%. So they kind of fall as we head towards the later part of the hurricane season. And look at the Nino 3-4 region, 0.7, 0.6, 0.2, 0.1, 0. You can pretty much say, or I like to say that sometimes the lower the Nino 3-4, basically the lower this number is, closer to the negatives or in the negatives, meaning that, if we get closer to 0. We get to negatives. That lower that anomaly number is, the more potential we have for an active hurricane season. Matter of fact, here it is, March. Okay, we're kind of in an inactive phase. La Nina, El Nino. Okay, we're leaning towards the right a little bit, so I'd say we're kind of at like 1 o'clock or so. We're at 12 o'clock here. I'm just describing where the arrow is. By April, again, La Nina, El Nino, and by May, we're kind of, that was bad. We're kind of on a 11 o'clock, 11:30 kind of scale. La Nina on the left, El Nino on the right. Notice how we go from you can't see me circling it, but 0.4 to 0 to negative 0.3. So we're getting closer to that La Nina stage. These are all little signs that we could have a potentially active hurricane season. Okay, so when I first made this presentation, it was 10 days ago on March 2nd. Obviously, took me a little while. I had to update some maps and everything. But instead of just taking the March 2nd map out and putting in the March 12th one in, I figured why not do a side-by-side comparison. So these next like dozen or so maps will be about this. Okay, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. We don't want to bore you guys out to death. So, with that being said, let's look. So March 2nd will be on the right here, or on the left, excuse me. March 12th will be on the right. Okay, so these are the sea surface temperature anomalies. And on the left, you can see March 2nd, right in the central part of the Gulf of Mexico there. It's pretty warm, but look how it all of a sudden has grown. That little central part in the Gulf of Mexico. The ocean temperature anomalies have really been above average, or at least getting better. And the Caribbean was well above average on the 2nd. I would say that it went down a little bit. So the waters aren't quite as, like warm above normal than they should be. Or that they were before. Like, look down here, like towards the northern South American coast. I mean, those medium deep oranges are replaced by light oranges and even some whites and blues. So not really a good sign there. But the Gulf Stream has not been doing that bad either. Okay, staying pretty the same. Delmarva. Okay, pretty much staying the same as well. Carolina coast. I mean, like off of Cape Hatteras, it's warm, but off the coast of Wilmington, it's cold. Look at this. So there's Wilmington, North Carolina, off the coast right there. See how there's a lot of blue, but Cape Hatteras off the coast, there's a lot of red. That's a pretty drastic difference there between warm and cold. Who knows? Maybe it's a potential thunderstorm development spot. Got that real heat from the ocean. And again, here we go. March 2nd on the left, March 12th on the right. And this time, these are the actual ocean temperatures in Celsius. And I can always convert this to Fahrenheit if you guys want, which I will. And overall, it's staying pretty the same for one thing, okay? So see like this shade of orange inside that black circle right there, right? This part. That's what I call the third shade of orange. That's like that, not that dark orange, but like a very medium orange. Notice how that breaks up here on March 12th, which is currently. Before we have like one solid stripe of really medium orange, and it's kind of broken up now. Broken up here, there, and why not draw a face? Yeah, but it's kind of broken up. You can tell. Okay, so I'd say the ocean temperatures went down a little bit for the parts of the Caribbean, like off the coast of Cuba and Haiti, right? Notice how it's like all 28, and it's kind of dropped to 27, which is basically saying we're going from 84 degrees Fahrenheit to like 82 or so. So we've been dropping a little bit. However, one place that might have gotten a little bit warmer is the southeast coast of Florida. Okay, instead of all greens, now we're starting to see some more yellows being added, meaning that's where that 80-degree water is. Any yellow on the map basically means that's where 80 degrees Fahrenheit water temperature is, or greater. Okay, and that's usually what we need to develop those tropical cyclones. Okay, so some places have gotten warmer, some places have gotten colder. Like, for example, the northern Gulf Coast has actually improved. We actually gotten warmer. The ocean water has actually gotten warmer. Same with off the southeast coast, we've gotten a degree or 2 Celsius warmer. Okay, Delmarva has pretty much stayed the same. But the Delmarva is warmer than normal because we never had a big, powerful, winter storm, really, which makes me very mad. But let's look at the eastern tropics now. Okay, so notice all this blue we had back on March 2nd. I remember seeing this. It's kind of being replaced now with more of white, meaning like average, as opposed to just, like below average. So it's improving out there. Also, one thing you might notice, look at all these dark reds. Okay, notice how like it's kind of south of the Cabo Verde Islands. The area of dark red that was right here before kind of moved north a little bit. So instead of that dark red being just southeast of Cabo Verde Islands, it's the very dark red is now perfectly aligned with them. Meaning, because think about it, all that dark red is down here, but all the tropical cyclones move like this. So it's kind of missing that area of warm water. But now, if a tropical cyclone were to come off like this, okay, now that area of significantly warmer water has moved north, now when a tropical cyclone moves off later, if it stays like this, it's got more of a warm environment. Because no tropical cyclone really goes down here. It doesn't really form near the equator. They usually come. I mean, they need energy from the equator, and they form near the equator, but they don't really go down towards the equator just to form. They kind of come off of that northern coast here, right by the Cabo Verde Islands. That's usually where they come off. The subtropics, like up here in the northern parts of the Atlantic, like the northern parts, it's kind of cooled down a little bit. Really seeing those dark oranges and reds kind of being replaced with some white and blue patches now. Kind of like those minor changes that the untrained eye may not, notice. Okay, mouse is not cooperating. Here we go. All right. So here is the actual ocean temperatures again. Let's put this over here. Not really much changes. Okay, we're getting a little warmer out here. We're getting there. That area of yellow and orange is just moving north. Okay, and remember, this is a change of over 10 days. Remember, this is the second over here. Okay, and that's the 12th over here. So this is a 10-day change. Not really much can happen over 10 days, as this proves you. Okay, and I already talked to you about the Caribbean, how that's been cooling down a little bit. Now here's the Caribbean ocean temperature anomalies. March 2nd, if you took all the Caribbean itself was 0.6 degrees Celsius above average. That has now dropped to 0.4. So the Caribbean, it's still above average, which is still promoting hurricane or tropical cyclone development for later in the season. However, it's not as good as it used to be. However, the Atlantic MDR, what is the MDR? Well, let me go back a couple slides and show you. The MDR is where hurricanes, tropical cyclones form later in the season. Main development region, that's what it stands for. Okay, and it comes right off here. Okay, well, I mean, you can choose which side to look at, doesn't matter. But they usually track off like this and off of the coast of Africa and form in this region. That's where they start to take their shape, and then they move into the Atlantic as they please. They move farther west. On the MDR, it's like basically between the Caribbean and the west coast of northern Africa, basically. We went from 0.28 Celsius above average to 0.31. So that one we actually improved in that department. So by Africa, we've actually improved. Where we've not improved that much is in northern Atlantic. So before we were 0.4 degrees Celsius below average. Now we're 0.43. So pretty much staying the same there over the course of 10 days. However, we gotten a little bit more chilly in the North Atlantic. Like I said, we're starting to see these dark oranges and reds kind of be replaced with these little minor blue patches. Like I said, nothing the untrained eye may not, notice it. Now let's go to the East Tropical Atlantic. Okay, so basically the MDR that I was telling you about, that's just as one specific area. That's one specific area. When I talk about the East Tropical Atlantic, it's talking about like the whole thing, like all this all region right here. Okay, not the subtropics, but by Africa, but it's more so like just the whole East Tropical Atlantic and not just one little area. So the East Tropical Atlantic, before we were 0.1 degrees Celsius above average, now we're 0.4. So we really actually been skyrocketing recently. So if that trend continues, we could be well above average for the East Tropical Atlantic. But like I said, we still got, let me see, you got April, May, June, July. I mean, you got potentially another 4 to 6 months or 4 to 5 months before we start to see, activity coming off of Africa. And, God knows there could be a lot of changes by then. Nino 3-4 index went from 0.42 above to 0.38 above. Again, we fell a little bit from where we were 10 days ago, meaning we got a little bit closer or a little bit closer to that La Nina stage, that above average hurricane season. Hope I'm not over explaining this or overthinking this too much for you guys. Dry air currently, really, I mean, then we head towards like the southern part here, and the dry air is not really existing there because that's the equator and it's always moist. Okay, but the dry air is still there. Okay, if you're like you might see the dry air and start laughing at the hurricane season. Well, to be honest with you, the dry air is supposed to be here probably all the way through June, July. This dry air is pretty much going to stick around. Okay, anywhere. Okay, and you're like, well, what's this? Is this no dry air? No, that is a storm that is currently nestled in that dry air, which means it's basically going to fall apart. Or at least, not be as strong. Here's from the NOAA, basically the tropical cyclonic heat content this was from yesterday. Okay? And basically the higher that number is, the brighter the color, the more red and yellow the color is, the more tropical cyclonic heat we have. Okay, and this is the first time I've used this map this season. I mean, I have used this map before. But since I just started using this season because this is my first time tracking, hurricanes. Well, actually, it's not the first time, but I did it last year, but, I haven't done it over the winter because there's no hurricanes over the winter time. So, I will say that for March, we're starting to see a little area of orange here, so some pretty intense potential tropical cyclonic heat content. Okay, if you go just south of Cuba, basically directly south of Cuba, I'd say that little region there where that orange is, basically 80 to 100 TCHP, or we could say 80 to 100 kJ centimeter squared. Oh, excuse me, my watch is going off. Is that where you are? Oh, cool. All right, let me just shut that watch off. I want you guys to suffer. That thing would have gone off for like a whole minute. All right, so basically that is basically let's see, basically 70s between 76 and 79 west, and then between 15 and 17 degrees north. So there's your latitude and longitude coordinates of where that area of moderate, I wouldn't say strong, but moderate tropical cyclonic heat. Okay, and that's a sign. That's another sign. Okay, wind shears pretty low. That's a little spot up there in the North Atlantic where we've been dropping. Okay, these white lines, these white solid lines mean wind shear has increased over the past 24 hours, and the blue dotted lines means wind shear has dropped over the past 24 hours, and the number just tells you the value it's been dropping by. And the black lines just mean it's been staying the same. And as you can see, we got a very strong wind shear, like over 100 knots, probably over 130 knots. Well, going across the southeast when we had that severe weather threat, but even the Caribbean, okay, is very high wind shears. Also in the tropical Atlantic, okay, Africa's over there somewhere. So yeah, high wind shears. Again, that is also normal. Also normal. All right, so here's going to take a look at the wind shear forecast in a GFS model for. So this is a day from now. So what the 1 day forecast, 2 days, and 3 days. Again, 50 plus knots of wind shear. Not much else to say here. 1 day, 2, 3. It's pretty much going to say the exact same. Okay, a lot of wind shear. Maybe a little pocket here of less wind shear due to that's from an actual storm that's still in a lot of wind shear. But since the GFS wants to pick up that storm actually on their map, so it's still in wind shear. You can't tell because of the storms on there, but it's still getting swept by lots of wind shear and kind of torn apart. Thank you guys for watching, and just to wrap this up here as we scroll down, okay, some more model forecasting. Again, we're dropping towards that La Nina stage, and according to the average of some of these models here from the CFS, we could be in a La Nina stage potentially by the start of hurricane season. And if that's the case, we're in for one heck of a time tracking these systems. But again, look at this. Look how the CFS forecasting potentially puts a bunch of blue on the map here, potentially forming as early as May or June and heading through August and September. So we're gonna have to see. So thank you for watching today's video, guys. Again, that big announcement video, bleep, that is in the description, and check it out, guys. You're gonna really like what the announcement is. Thank you. I think the announcement is something that it's kind of been like you guys have been waiting for it, basically, and it's finally coming. It's coming very soon. You guys are going to enjoy the announcement, so go in the description if you haven't already. Click the link where it says big announcement video, where it's titled big announcement video. I'll put it near the top so you guys can see it, so you guys can check out the video. Thank you guys for watching. I'm the Weather Dude, signing off. Till next time.